All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this month's Roundtable. So, today we have with us both columnists from the Environment and Social Issues Cluster and the Public Policy Cluster from Nickel and Dime, the official research platform for the Center of New Economic Studies. As panelists, we have everyone, and today's discussion will be moderated by Madhumita and myself. So, I request Madhumita to introduce the topic and commence the discussion.
So today we will be broadly discussing the interconnections between AI and sustainability. Following the recent buzz that was created by ChatGPT, the world witnessed the boom of AI within the sustainability realm. Artificial intelligence, or more commonly known using its acronym AI, has been seen as a powerful solution to address environmental challenges by optimizing energy consumption, predicting climate patterns, and enabling precision agriculture. Its applications in renewable energy, waste management, and resource conservation holds great promise for a greener future, fostering a harmonious coexistence between technology and the environment. However, as with any emerging technology, there are concerns about AI's limitations and whether it can truly solve the complex climate crisis. Skepticism lingers, questioning if AI is just another overhyped trend or if it truly holds the potential to deliver the transformative changes needed to combat environmental degradation. This roundtable aims to throw light on the bewildering question, can AI solve the climate crisis? And with that, I'd like to ask the first question. Given the award winning carbon accounting methodologies, which have made wonders in terms of emissions data, to what extent do you think AI can be leveraged to improve the efficiency within the sustainability industry? Yes, Sudiksha, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madhumita. So, with respect to the first question, as in sustainable strategy for application for I suppose the first and foremost will be emissions monitoring and reporting. I mean, it is the bedrock of everything, analyzing data to like identify the areas for improvements and for prospective climate change, activities happening. Then we have supply chain tracking for monitoring and sustainability practices of suppliers from intracity or intercity. Then one of the major, one of the major strategy we have energy efficiency, which includes building energy systems and other equipments to reduce energy consumption and carbon emissions. Yeah, so that's it from my side.
Thank you for pointing out some of the key aspects that are usually dealt with in the sustainability industry and how AI can be used for the same. Shreya, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so just adding on to what Sutikshna said, I think the one area where AI will prove to be helpful is to just assimilating these complicated cloud systems, basically how it can assimilate data from various sources to give meaningful results. Let's say like AI, it's said that AI is already helping companies and industries to forecast weather patterns like rainfall, etc. So that would really help the sustainability industry to leverage or channel their resources in that way, especially if you look at the renewable energy sector. If we have better data interpretations of where the use is required, so I think that would really help in optimizing the operating systems. So yeah, I think much of it is, as I said, related to data and tackling these complicated grid systems in which AI will prove to be very helpful for the industry.
No, I completely agree, and I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think both the points kind of like mention about how exactly AI can be used in the sector. So I think the follow-up question becomes even more important, which is what exactly are the ethical implications of relying on AI technologies to address the climate crisis, and how might it impact the environment decision making, equity, and human agency? I think I'll let Soumya go first, and then Stikshna can take it up.
Yeah, so if I talk about the human agency, I think AI can pose a great question when it comes to the decisions that people are making, especially because it's really difficult to maintain that balance if you're making a decision taking AI in mind, because the fact is that while we are looking at AI as this potential solution to combat the climate issues, there is also one risk that it poses, that it is a lot more the technologies that are used in AI, they are a lot more water intensive and energy intensive, because of which, like for example, I was studying that there is this place, I think in Africa, where there is a lot of mention about how people's habitat is being destroyed and there is overusage of water. So around 65% of the water that is available there is being used only in the AI stuff. So, it is important to understand that how it is going to affect the decision between, like maintaining a balance between getting good air technology to combat climate change and also putting the humans and like their agency at risk.
Thank you, Soumya. So, adding on to Soumya's point of human agency, I suppose AI has a risk of erosion to human autonomy in some climate focused, AI systems, which is there at the moment. And for some reason, we can be introduced by the concept of nudging. Nudging is basically altering the human choices, like from carbon emissions and how much carbon emission, because AI does pose that risk, and how by way of nudging we can pose like free choices, human free choices, how humans can make free choices. Now, apart from that, we have like very basic privacy and data protection, and I think EU GDPR and other legislations have been working on data protection extensively. And then one more like ethical issue that AI poses is the way AI is designed and developed, and how AI is trained. And again, the aspect of human agencies, like uh, I mean, is introduced here as well, because it also introduces the potential for unwanted biases to enter into the decisions about the AI system, which may lead to discrimination and unfair treatment of individuals and groups. So there's this report by Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers that have laid the general basic principles for ethical and value-based design, development, and implementation of autonomous and intelligent system. So they have 7 to 8 criteria, which includes human rights, well-being, data agencies, effectiveness, transparency, accountability, awareness of misuse, and competence. So this is basically the impact of AI in all these parameters. Now, where environment comes is under the parameter of well-being. And they have explicitly mentioned that including this, as in the production, management, and implementation of AI, it has to be streamlined to avoid environmental harm, because even if it is not implemented in certain criterias, and to meet the SDG 13th, I mean the 13th goal, which is climate change and everything, if AI is not on track and it is still violating the ethical issues, the basic principles or the basic goal cannot be achieved. So yeah, that's it.
No, I think I completely agree with you on the points that you've raised here. So before, like, I think I can say more. I'll let Malvika speak, and then I can take it forward from there.
Furtherance to the discussion on data analysis, I think that AI and artificial intelligence platforms will be very useful in automating a lot of the clerical work and a lot of the very tedious, time consuming work that a lot of people working in this industry have to go through. And when it does that, it frees up a lot more manpower and creative energy to think of creative solutions for our climate crises, when people don't have to spend hours pouring through auditing reports and figures and metrics and trying to get them into the um, right formulas, I would say. And for a lot of countries abroad are already on this path, and I think India is going to be there soon. India does not have a comprehensive uniform set of accounting standards right now for sustainable energy. We're still using a very rough roadmap of SASB, BRI, and other international standards that have been adopted, and we're on the path to formulating our own standardized and uniform accounting metrics for sustainable for sustainability and environment related issues. And I think that artificial intelligence coming in can eliminate the the need for discretion of companies to put in their own metrics as own accounting metrics and figures and sustainability reports as they please, which can maybe mitigate chances for corruption and also chances for human error. So I think that artificial intelligence will automate a lot of this process and free up energy for better uses of our time in fighting climate crisis.
Soumya, do you have anything more to add, or like is your hand raised from before?
Yeah. Actually, I wanted to talk about what Lexa Tikshna mentioned. So when we're talking about the ethical concerns for human agency, I think there is also this idea apart from autonomy about the opportunities that it presents for humans. So basically, I think that because a lot of the research that is going on in AI today is predominantly in the research institutions and companies based in developed countries, I think it also poses a risk for like exacerbating the inequalities that exist between the relatively richer and poorer countries globally. So I think this could lead to a lot of blind spots, and countries which are not already developed would be neglected in the long run. So I think that is something that we should be also cognizant of.
Yeah, I think you raised a very valid point there. That's something that I really appreciate in the first place because I have read a lot of books, and one book that impressed me was by Naomi Klein. She raised a bias that humans generally think that technocratic innovations can solve the climate crisis, whereas there are a lot more humanistic aspects that we need to pay heed to. All right, moving on. Do you think AI-enabled cities, smart cities, can contribute to sustainable urban development and thereby reduce environmental footprints? Um, Shreya, do you want to go ahead first?
Yeah, thank you. So I think definitely yes. AI cities which are using AI technology will definitely benefit in a lot of ways. For example, waste management. I was reading about how AI can easily detect the different kind of waste and categorize it accordingly. Another thing is that like AI can also help in a way optimizing resources, like how much energy consumption is supposed to be used by certain, let's say, buildings or corporate spaces in helping people park their cars. So, yeah, AI can be helpful in a lot of ways to optimize time, energy, and resources in general. But I think, again, it leads back to the question of ethics that was previously being discussed, and that when such technologies use such heavy big data, then how do countries and legislations make sure that this data is protected and the frequency of cyber attacks or data leaks is mitigated? So I think it is like a double edged sword in that sense.
Right. Thank you for that. Shilpa, do you want to go ahead next?
Thank you, Madhurita and Shreya. Just adding on to Shreya's point, besides helping in waste management and energy efficiency, um, AI can also be used in water management. So the recent Delhi floods and all that. So it's a stark reminder for all of us to how we need to manage our water and also dams, water in dams as well. So again, AI can be used in such instances by monitoring water usage and identifying leaks and predicting the flow of water and all that. Along with it, even to reduce pollution, you can use AI where you can use smart air quality sensors or indicators that will automatically detect air pollution levels. Adding on to these points, I'd like to just say that India is also one of the leading countries in the world, and we some of the cities in India have enabled something called smart city solutions. So essentially, smart city solutions are a set of solutions that uses AI or artificial intelligence in urban governance. So you can see that in Pune. So Pune was one of the very first cities in India to adopt something called a smart traffic management system. So where they use AI cameras to check whether the drivers are wearing a seat belt, or and motorcyclists whether they're using a helmet and all of that sorts. Again, there is Bangalore. They are one of the first. So Bangalore is one of the first cities in India to introduce something called a smart parking system, along with something called a smart lighting system. And again, in Delhi you can see something called a smart waste management system. So again, my point being that the term smart there, the smart solutions, the term smart there emphasizes the usage of AI and technology to bring about solutions or enrich the urban um, yeah, enrich the urban technology that we have. Along with these cities, there's also Surat in Gujarat. They've also implemented something called a smart security system. Again, it uses AI and tech. So again, there is Chennai as well, adding on to the list. So just concluding my point again, like what Shreya and Soumya before had said, AI is very, very crucial in such instances. That's all.
That was a very insightful answer with those practical examples. Ria, do you want to take over next? After which I think Soumya can finish up.
Right, thank you. So, like my previous speakers so rightly pointed out, traffic control, waste and resource management, and even air pollution management are some of the key areas that AI can, target to make cities smarter and thereby utilizing the resources much better. So, if I talk about reducing air pollution specifically, there have been many instances where cities across the world have already implemented AI to reduce their air pollution. Singapore being one of them, they've installed Internet of Things sensors, and AI is being used to collect and analyze air quality and levels of pollutants and temperature in the city. They use this data to then combine with AI potentially to predict where air quality issues are and will be in order to ultimately mitigate the effects with effective preventative measures. IBM researchers are also testing a new form of AI to reduce the severity of air pollution in Beijing, which is being plagued by like really high levels of air pollution for the past decade or so, by analyzing data drawn from coal fueled factories and industrial complexes, along with weather conditions and traffic congestion. Somebody also mentioned improving traffic control. So that reminded me of a research that I read about at researchers at the Department of Energy, Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, who are also working with a computational tool based on deep reinforcement learning models called circles. Circles, which stands for congestion impact reduction via CAV in the loop Lagrangian energy smoothing, which basically, in layman terms, simulates large amounts of vehicles traveling in custom traffic scenarios. This connected and autonomous vehicle, which is the acronym for CAV, enabled system can reduce energy consumption and improve traffic flow by reducing stop and go phantom traffic jams on the freeway. So, and also AI based automatic license plate readers software, such as the one deployed by a company called Record, can also be used to provide recognized vehicles real time detection of crimes and violations. So, like if somebody is violating the pollution norms of that country, the AI can sort of like compile all that information and then use that to basically reduce the air pollution and also the traffic. So that's how it can be a little more environment friendly. Also, cognitive power plants is a new concept which basically focuses on the efficiency and productivity of natural gas power plants that have always been plagued by like
adverse environmental conditions such as temperature and humidity. So, a company called Beyond Limits AI is aware enough to assist operators with its encoded expert level human knowledge to make real time adjustments and make up for those change in adverse environmental conditions. So the result of this is basically instead of producing unneeded power in excess that cannot be stored, the AI software can then constantly monitor the gas turbines in the entire system to prevent wasted production or lose profit because of underproduction. So, coupled with its ability to coordinate several interconnected production units at the same time, this futuristic power plant will be more efficient, productive, safe, and environmental friendly. That's all I wanted to add.
That was a very comprehensive answer which touched upon a lot of sectors, as you mentioned. Thank you for pulling up that research. Soumya, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think all the speakers have given a pretty comprehensive answer you just mentioned, so I think we can move ahead.
I think I'd like to point out on something. Circular economy has been one of the research topics that has been quite interesting and has caught my eye. And I recently read how AI and circular economy can actually help in building smart cities. So, this is combined with like the three R's: reuse, reduce, recycle. And AI has been integrated into that uh, understanding and has been used in several sectors from the production manufacturing stages, in retail industry, automobile industry, and even I think aviation to some extent. And all of this have made a huge impact on urban governance. So Ashisha, I think you can continue with the next question.
Sure, but I think just before continuing, I think there was just another point that I really wanted to raise from like the last and like I mean in this whole discussion, which is again when we talk about AI and technologies, right? And this will kind of like lead into the next question too. We are talking about smart cities and again how in the example of air pollution, we're talking about how Beijing, Singapore, and then India also, right? All of us are trying to like kind of develop technologies around it. So I think another major aspect that we kind of need to take in mind is that the technology around AI that we are developing, are we only using it for ourselves or are we sharing the technology too? And if we are sharing this technical know-how, who exactly are we sharing it to? And I think it again kind of drives back to the point of inequality. Like, is it only the global north or the global south countries that are like developing? And if they are developing, then are they really sharing it with everyone? Because climate change and the climate crisis is not just limited to one area, it impacts everyone, as we have seen with the Pakistan floods and now with, again, the floods in North India. So, moving on to the next question. Do you think AI can help strike a balance between technological advancement and the preservation of our environment? And if so, then how?
Okay, so for this question, I can add few points. Examples have been covered in the discussion right now. So it says that AI can contribute to achieving this balance by optimizing the resource use. It can analyze vast amounts of data to optimize resource management, making industries more efficient and reducing waste. Then it comes to environmental monitoring and conservation also. While doing this, the information can help us identify environmental threats, track changes over time, and inform conservation efforts. Then, third point about this is the climate modeling and prediction. Then there is sustainable agriculture. AI can optimize agricultural practices by providing insights into crop management, soil health, water usage, and precision agricultural techniques enabled by AI can help us to reduce the use of pesticides and fertilizers, for instance, while increasing the crop yields and thus promoting sustainability and improving the food production. Then again, Madhumita also mentioned about circular economy and recycling. It can aid in identifying the materials that are suitable for recycling and streamlining the waste sorting process. It can also help in optimizing the supply chain logistics, making it easier to establish a circular economy where products are reused, refurbished, or even recycled instead of just straight away being discarded. Then there's renewable energy integration, then there's eco-friendly transportation, environmental policy and decision making. But yes, all of this comes down
to again that one point that whether ethical considerations are being taken care of not. While we were discussing about the ethical considerations, I also read that how can that ethical considerations be achieved? So what is the process to do that, to mitigate these ethical implications? How can we do that? So one of the ways could be diverse and inclusive data, ensuring that the data used to train AI models are representative and they do not perpetuate the inequalities or the biases. This can be basically actively seeking out and including underrepresented groups and regions in data collection efforts. Then the AI models should be based on ethical designs. Sorry, they could be transparent, fair, and accountable while the decision-making processes are being taken. And of course, the oversight is really important to ensure. Just a second. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. So I was saying the human side is or really oversight is important while balancing AI-driven decisions and intervention. That is what I wanted to add.
No, I think your answer is like pretty great and comprehensive again, and you have like raised extremely crucial points that we kind of like again need to drive back to the point of like ethics to it because we cannot leave that point behind in many of the
Yeah.
conversations that we're going forward. Thank you so much for your answer. Soumya, do you want to like add on to it?
Yeah, definitely. I think a really great point that she mentioned about was the fact that the data should be great. So there have been a lot of instances in the past where inequality has been exacerbated, or there has been inefficient reach of solutions because of the fact that the data on which the AI is trained is data which is outdated and is not representative. So I think the most important point, if we are looking at training AI, is to have algorithms that take into account data which is very inclusive. And I think that actually brings us to the point that there should be enough training to help collect and organize data in a way that we inculcate equity in it, not equality. Because as I mentioned earlier about how there is an existing gap between developed and developing and underdeveloped countries, I think because of that, it is really important for us to understand that data collection will be the key if we are going to look ahead at a future which is driven by AI technologies.
No, I think that's like a really, really important point that you raised. And I think I'll just add a bit onto it. Like, what exactly is the data that you're feeding to the system, right? Because, and again, who exactly is the one developing the technologies and the AI? So if it's like a huge corporation that only talks about uh, profit-oriented ideas and solutions, then do we really think the sustainability is going to be the number one thing on their mind? And I think, Aina, do you want to like go ahead with it?
Yeah, so while we were talking about this ethical consideration, one thing also I wanted to add was that there is also a need for continuous evaluation for every algorithm or every AI technology that is being adopted. One thing that is often left behind is the continuous evaluation of understanding whether the process that has been followed till now or whether the policy that has been followed till now based on the technology, whether it has delivered that results or not, and whether it is sustainable or not.
I think that's also a very interesting take on it. What I'd like to add is that, um, following up on what Archisha said, I think it's really important to see what the company prioritizes the most, right? So there's AI for sustainability and sustainability of AI in the first place, which are two different things. And there's, of course, biases within AI and the algorithms. So I think what every company needs to focus on is how they can come in and bridge the gap. And that is how I think we can truly strike a balance between technological advancement as well as the preservation of our environment. It's humanistic decisions that's going to keep us afloat, if that makes sense.
Definitely. I mean, companies are still kind of trying to avoid their and trying to greenwash their ESG compliances. So how exactly can we trust them to make technologies that are like again sustainable and those technologies to reach the entire country? Because I think profiting off the environment is something that is what they're made for, right? And what they're kind of profiting off of. So we kind of need to like, I think, mobilize and kind of make people aware that, this is something that needs to be developed and this is somewhere our resources really need to go.
Yeah, I agree. I think companies need to move more than just compliance at this point, which surprisingly a few companies in India do at this point. I think people have to take examples of the same and implement the same in their companies. Okay, moving on. What do you think are some key considerations policymakers and developers need to keep in mind such that the AI can benefit all stakeholders, especially the ones who are marginalized in the climate crisis?
Hi, thank you, Madhumita. Just again adding on to the conversation that we've been having so far. So there are so many considerations that policymakers must take into account while they use AI in the policies. And one of the very first considerations that a policymaker or should take into account is to make sure that the AI is that's being developed is used in a very fair and equitable manner. So, considering that we're talking about marginalized people, especially when it comes to climate crisis and all that sorts, we should make sure that the tech and the AI is not just basically used to cater to one sect of people, but also the marginalized. So for that, one thing that they should keep in mind is to make sure it's used in a very fair and equitable manner. And in the Indian context, that basically stems from the need for local adaptation. So many a time, India as a country, we just tend to adopt tech or tech or anything directly onto the Indian scenario, so onto the Indian space, and that needs a little bit of modification because India is a country that has varied culture and social systems. So even the AI solutions that have been propagated in other countries, they may not be particularly suitable for India. So in that case, we should make sure that it is attributed to the specific needs of Indian communities. So while we are talking about Indian communities, we need to make sure that it addresses the marginalized people as well. So again, we should also look at the cultural and social factors of it. So again, AI should be there should be some sort of local adaptation with the usage of AI and tech. And again, a second point that policymakers should keep in mind is to make sure that the AI or the tech that you use, it should protect the privacy and civil liberties of people. Even when we're talking about the marginalized or any other sect of people, we should make sure that again it safeguards the privacy of all people. So again, that comes from so many needs. One being the need for public awareness and education regarding privacy and also AI. And if we are using AI, before bringing in the complete AI innovation, you should educate the people what they're signing up for. Not really the upper class or the middle class, but also the marginalized people. Also, basically, you need to educate everyone. And again, a final point that I want to take into this conversation is the promotion of responsible AI research and development. Again, so AI is very nascent in Indian context, and it's very important that there should be some sort of promotion for AI research and development, so that again you can add on to the benefits that we are reaping right now. Again, to cater to our needs, especially when you're talking about climate crisis or any other crisis for that matter. And that again stems from the need for government support. So the government should also be open and willing to, promotion of AI development and use of responsible AI in India. So that again talk that leads to the funding for AI research and all that. So just concluding my remarks, so there are a couple of considerations that policymakers should take into account, be it ethical or tech related, or um, it comes to equity and all that. So there are a couple, and but then at the end of the day, I feel like you should, especially policymakers, they should be able to prioritize these considerations and try to, you know, achieve some of the considerations that would that should that yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Malvika, do you wanna follow up with that?
Hi, yeah, no, I just wanted to add to the discussion the same thing that I think talking to the actual stakeholders and involving them in the decision-making process and public policy is really important as it's crucial to integrate the people that the problem actually affects with the solutions to the problem. So I think that was pretty much covered.
Right. I think that were two very valid answers. Yeah, Samya, do you wanna add on to anything?
Yeah, just one quick thing. I think it's very good that Shilpa mentioned about how people who are going to be using it should be educated about its use. So I think increasing the transparency of how things are going to work will definitely help. But secondly, I also think that since we know that the way AI works is that we are at the user's end. So there are a lot of things that like problems that arise when we start using them. So I think there should also be certain protocols to follow if the tool doesn't work as expected. So in the past I've seen a lot of accidents that are happening. So like when a code is running and there are results which are inappropriate, there should be protocols on how to stop that code from running or things like that. So we should also be educated about how there should be like a emergency rescue from things that are happening. So I think that could really help.
Fair enough. What I have to add on to this is that when we consider policy, right, even if we take SDGs, there are contradicting policies. For example, one SDG, that is SDG 8, it speaks for decent work and economic growth. The other one is industry, innovation, and infrastructure. While that's there, there's also reduced inequalities, there's also responsible consumptions. And there's also a number of things which contradicts with the goals in itself, right? So I think policymakers need to be aware of the gaps that exist within the policy structure and design in the first place, and then consider how they can mitigate these gaps and where they could fill in AI, right? That's definitely there. I also wanted to add on that, especially when it comes to marginalized people, right? Uh, the SDGs in particular, they did not incorporate principles of environmental justice, which recognize the right of every person to freely access natural resources and to participate in decisions that affect the environment, right? So again, this contributes to the contradictions that lie with the 17 goals. And I think must be seen as a very efficient tool, but it's not an all savior. We cannot think that AI is going to solve the climate crisis. Of course, it can provide the necessary tools that can do so. But again, I think in the end of the day, the policymaker must be aware and put AI in its place, in its role. And that I think could be a huge change for those who have been marginalized due to the climate crisis. Um, yeah, that's all I wanted to add.
And I think just adding on to it, AI needs to be like an enabler in this. And while we are talking about technological developments and AI, we kind of have to look at the context that we are putting it in. For example, in India, right, there are a lot of Adivasis and indigenous groups who have their own ways of like essentially preserving the environment and like taking care of it, right? And they have their own individual practices, which are also like extremely important, crucial, and that works in their context. So while we can talk about how AI is important, we also need to make sure and keep their considerations in mind and kind of like not entirely discard the traditional methods too at the same time. Before like I conclude, is there anything anyone else would like to add on to like the entire discussion of like AI and the environment? All right. Assuming that there's nothing else to add, I think I'll just conclude. Thank you everyone for coming and contributing intensively and substantially to this roundtable on AI and the environment. I think there were some great points raised about both how exactly AI can be used to essentially better the environment and sustainability discussion moving forward. But at the same time, I think every time we talk about this conversation, we need to keep in the ethical considerations in mind and to make sure that AI is actually helping everyone, especially the stakeholders and the marginalized. So there can be some social outcomes of the AI, like we discussed about enforcing your bias and prejudice and unemployment, and obviously the ownership of data and coding and how exactly are we training the AI. But I think if we keep all these considerations in mind when we're developing policies around it and essentially implementing those technologies, I think AI does have like a great future in this field. It's just that we need to make sure how exactly we can extract it properly. So thank you everyone for joining in.